Good morning, Husker fans. Welcome back to the Husker Big Red YouTube channel. Back with me, as always, my co-host Danny Gillette of thegreatcornholio.org. And it was a great night last night, Danny. It was a late night as Nebraska went on the road, and it was kind of ugly. They had to rally from a 13-point deficit, but we've got a second straight win, a 2-game winning streak. So we're talking gut reactions. Just what was your first reaction last night to a huge win for the Nebraska Cornhuskers, Danny?
Well, since you're talking about the win, I'll offer my first reaction to the win. I can tell you my first reaction last night, but this is you can't ask for more. On the road against Rutgers, and people think, oh, Rutgers, we should smoke them, we should beat them, and admittedly, that's what we thought in our predictions. But Greg Schiano teams always come to play. They're very well coached, very disciplined, and they make life difficult for their opponents. And we saw that for the Nebraska offense for most of the game on Friday night, and they were able to find the Trey Palmer Casey Thompson connection again, and that really kind of got things rolling. Better late than never.
Yeah, Trey the kid, man, came up with a huge play last night. Casey Thompson, you have to give him a lot of credit. Things did not go perfectly in the first half. He was getting blitzed, pressured all the time, had the interception. People were talking about, is Chuba Purdy going to come in here? And, Mickey Joseph stuck with his guys. He kept with his team. His steady leadership, was there. Nebraska incredibly now has shut out, 2 opponents in a row in the second half on defense. And so that was, a huge key to last night. But even beyond that, in the first half, the defense really did a spectacular job of keeping Nebraska in the game. There was the blocked punt. When they blocked that punt, I mean, my first thought was like, oh, here we go again, and they're going to get up 14-0, but the defense holds them to 3 points. Gunnarsson made a nice stop there to keep them out of the end zone and give the defense a chance. And that was maybe something, it's those little effort plays. It's like, sometimes, in the NFL, when you chase a guy down after a big play to the 1-yard line, and people are like, well, why did, it didn't matter. Well, sometimes those things do matter. And the defense, made it matter that, Rutgers didn't score on that blocked punt. And I think those couple of stops, like after the turnovers to keep it 13-0, that saved Nebraska's chances of winning that game.
The time of possession was 31-40 and 28-20 in favor of Nebraska, but it felt like the defense was out on the field for a lot of the game, especially in the first half. And, they continued to stand strong and, stay firm, and they were able to get the key stops they needed. And, a lot of times they were put in unfavorable position on the field, and they were able to just stay steady and, try to limit Rutgers as much as possible. I thought they did a really good job with that, and I thought Bill Busch had another strong game. I really think when you look at what he's done this past 2 weeks and how bad the defense was prior to this, he's done a very, very good job.
Yeah, I mean, Bill Busch getting top marks for me again last night. I mean, the pass rush was good. There's just some variance to his scheme. He's not just saying, hey, let's line up 4 guys and rush people. He's calling some nice stunts. He's putting guys in a position to succeed. And they forced 3 turnovers last night, and those were absolutely huge. Brandon Moore, we were all kind of, asking about him when he got picked up, and he got through in the game last night and made an absolutely huge play. Miles Farmer, man, I loved what Mickey Joseph, I don't know if you saw the press conference last night, but I rewatched it, last night, not live, but, Mickey said, Miles Farmer was struggling, but, I believed in the kid. I know he's a good player. I kept on him, and he made a huge play last night. And Nebraska doesn't win that game without him. And then, of course, Malcolm Hartzog, he really started poorly. I mean, that long pass play from, I think it was the 30-yard pass play on that first drive. He got benched for a minute, but, you have to have a short memory to play cornerback. And he came up with a huge play. I mean, it wasn't the hardest play on that interception, but he still caught the ball. And it was really smart for him to get to slide down too. I was impressed with that. Although I wasn't impressed with the fact that Nebraska almost had like a New York Giants, Miracle in the Meadowlands fumble on the snap. I missed that for a second because I was doing I work as a sports guy, newspaper guy, and so I was at a high school football game streaming it at the same time, and I think I tweeted out Nebraska's alone first in the Big Ten West before the game was over, and then Casey Thompson.
I did the same thing.
That was scary, but it worked out. But please, let's work on that a little bit. Nebraska just has had so few V victory formation chances. They almost messed it up, but
Well,
the defense again was just sorry, but man, the
no, go
defense
ahead.
was amazing.
I was gonna say, poor Casey probably had a knee jerk reaction to snapping the ball and then having to run to save his life. Because
Yeah.
I'll say this: the offensive line is absolutely horrible, and I don't see it getting fixed anytime soon. It is atrocious. Probably the worst unit on this entire team. It's just miserable, and if you could say bench Casey, at certain spots and put in Chuba. But I think you could put Tom Brady back there or, Patrick Mahomes back there, and they wouldn't be able to do anything behind this line. This line is absolutely – they were basically holding the Rutgers defenders' hands to lead them to Casey Thompson, and it was just disgusting. It was disgusting. I mean, I hate to, bash on the line so bad, but, all year it's just been the same stuff, and it's been literally disgusting play from the line. I don't know how some of these guys were so highly ranked recruits because – this is just awful, and I don't see it getting better.
Yeah, we talked about that last week. That's the biggest wart on this roster. And I mean, if you look at it, I mean, the defense has gotten a lot better, and that's the biggest concern kind of going into every game. And it was a big concern last night. Can they protect Casey Thompson? And they did not do a very good job of that. The running game got nowhere. I think Anthony Grant only had like 49 yards. It was just a grind for every single yard. There just was no holes for the guy. And I don't know if he maybe had maybe one run that was over 10 yards, but it was tough sledding. And some of the blocking was brutal. I mean, Turner Corcoran in the second half just got absolutely toasted on the blind side.
I didn't want to name names, but yeah.
and I know he's out of, I know he's better at left guard than left tackle. That's not where they wanted to play him, but it's like, you have to do what you have to do. And, it's the next man up. And, Mickey was joking about this last night, and he's like, what else am I going to do? It's the next man up. The next guy's gets a scholarship too. And I expect him to step in there and play. And that's worked at a lot of positions, but the offensive line, it really hasn't. And I agree with you, Danny. It's going to be a constant issue that's going to have to be managed basically through every game, because that they're going to get smoked, constantly. And I know Rutgers has a pretty solid defensive line. I mean, they're better than like Indiana, but Illinois is going to be tough. Purdue's going to be tough. Wisconsin, Michigan, Iowa, all those teams are really good on the D line. So it's going to be a little bit scary, and hopefully Anthony Grant can find a way to get some yards against some other teams.
And people were saying, why not run the ball a little bit more? Because Anthony Grant would literally run into the Rutgers defensive line and, get stopped for 2 yards. That's why they didn't run the ball a little bit more. And I know it puts pressure on Casey Thompson and the rest of the offense to get things done. But, I mean, that line is just gross. I mean, what do you do to kind of counteract that offensively? Do you just see if Casey can run more? I know that's not his primary skill set, like Adrian Martinez, for example. But, I mean, if I was Mark Whipple, I would try to see if I could get more quarterback rollout plays just to, at the very least, save Thompson.
Yeah, it's kind of a hard dilemma. I understand the idea behind running the ball, but like you said, you have to get some push. I'm going to be interested to look at the snap counts because, I wasn't able to watch the game quite as closely as I normally do. So I don't know if, Hunter Anthony and if they still split time at right tackle. I'm curious about Leftoski, if he got any snaps too, because that's about the only backups that you can play right now, Leftoski and Anthony. That's because the other guys, there's just really nowhere else to go on that offensive line depth chart, and that's kind of the most difficult thing I think for Donovan Raiola and these guys is they're just they're trying to make kind of some square pieces fit into round holes, and it's just not really working. But so far, man, they've got 2 big wins, and I have to give a ton of credit to Casey Thompson. He was so gutsy last night. Travis Vokalek was big, on the road at Rutgers, Trey Palmer and all those guys, Marcus Washington. But I really think like last night, Casey Thompson kind of, I don't think we're going to see him coming out ever again, for, maybe if he gets hurt or whatever. But, Mickey Joseph really talked about him strongly at the press conference last night. And he brought this team back. I mean, I know there was a lot of other factors, but Nebraska doesn't win that game without a gutsy performance from Casey Thompson.
Absolutely. And I thought he did the best he could with what he was given. And, I thought they did a really good job of giving him slant routes because it seems like he sees the ball better when the play is right in front of him. And, that's not a knock on him. If it works, keep going to it. And that's what they did. I thought the first drive of the second half, when they got Anthony Grant involved in the passing game and they were able to move downfield, when Anthony Grant absolutely ended that Rutgers defender's life, I thought that was a very good drive. I mean, man, that was a hit. That was a
That
hit you see from like a linebacker, but he just absolutely not a dirty hit, not a
no.
not a foul play. That just looked bad because he literally lowered his shoulder and then completely flattened the Rutgers defender. I was just like, man, like damn, like we haven't seen that in a little bit, and that was good to see. So
That definitely got the blood flowing, the juices flowing. I think, but yeah, I liked Casey did like last week we talked about hit some of those easy passes. Well, he did that last night. I mean, he threw some because he had to out of necessity, but he threw some short passes to Grant to Vokalek, and I thought that Mark Whipple did a really good job scheming things up. They were pinned inside their own territory a lot to start last night, to start drives last night, and that makes it pretty difficult when you can't run the football and you're getting absolutely no pass protection. So I thought Whipple really did a nice job of getting the ball out to Vokalek, and after Casey Thompson's poor start, getting him some easy completions, some high percentage throws to kind of get him going. Yeah, I really liked it, and it was interesting because last night they asked Mickey about Whipple and, if he wanted to run more or whatever. And it was really interesting what he said. He said, Whipple's a veteran coach, and he's like, I'm not going to criticize him. I'm going to let him figure it out. I'm not going to hop in there. And, basically did the anti-Scott Frost. And so far, almost everything that Mickey's has done has been the anti-Scott Frost. And this team would not have won if Scott Frost was coaching last night. No way in hell.
and they wouldn't have won against Indiana either.
No.
But people are criticizing his play calling, Mark Whipple's play calling, and it's fair to a point. But in order to execute, you have to have a good line, and the combination of not having a good line and not allowing Casey Thompson to make his reads does affect play calling in some instances, and it also affects play calling because you struggle to run the football. So I know people were getting on Whipple last night for his play calling in some parts of the game, but and I hate to put it on one unit, but it really was the offensive line. If we had a better offensive line, some of these plays get completed and we get to move the chains forward more than we did Friday night.
Yeah, because it opens up the whole playbook, and especially we've seen with this Nebraska offense when Anthony Grant's going and when Casey Thompson doesn't have to sit there in second and long and third and long. I mean, the offense works much better. I mean, everybody knows that. I can understand people being frustrated with Whipple, but I really think he's done a lot better job over the past couple of weeks. It seems like there is more of that. I feel like he just can be himself with Mickey. I know Mickey's kind of said, hey, let's slow it down a little bit, which they didn't really do, but they did when they had to. I mean, in the fourth quarter, they burned off every single second before they punted the ball back to Rutgers. And I enjoyed that. I think that it was the smart decision, and just to trust in your defense. And he trusted in the defense a lot last night, and it's pretty impressive that they went, I mean, almost 3 quarters without giving up any points, and just time and time again, man. I know Rutgers missed a field goal, but there was like a drive where Rutgers got into Nebraska territory with like 10 minutes to go. It was like at the 4, and it was like 3rd and 1, and Nebraska stoned them. I mean, it was 3rd and 1, and the defensive line stoned them, and then Rutgers took that penalty. But I thought that was the turning point because if Rutgers gets that first down, they're probably going to get a field goal, and then it's 16-7. And so for them not to get it there, and eventually the field position flipped, and then Farmer came up with that huge play, and it all worked out that way. But the defense just really rose to the occasion every single time. And what, I said this last night at HuskerBigRed.com. I think it's time to give the black shirts back the black shirts. Personally, I believe that. I mean, after what they did last night and what they did against Indiana, I'm not saying everybody on the defense, but Malcolm Herzog, he deserves a black shirt, I think. And some of those other guys that got him taken away after that Oklahoma game, I think they should be given back.
We'll see what they do against Purdue this weekend, but I think it is almost time to give them the black shirts. I don't know if I'd give them back yet, only because we've won without them. So I don't know. I'm a little bit superstitious now. Get 2 wins and get a little bit of superstition going. But, I will say you mentioned the good offensive play calling, and I was just thinking when you were talking about that, in our 3 wins against, what was it, South Dakota State? I get South and North mixed up.
It was North Dakota.
North Dakota.
Yeah.
In our win against North Dakota, in our win against Indiana, and in our win against Rutgers, we've had a long drive in the fourth quarter that involved some sort of clock management, and we were able to do something to seal the deal. In North Dakota, it was a touchdown, I believe. In the Indiana game, it was another touchdown that took up a lot of time. And in this game, it was simply just draining the clock and allowing the clock to run to not give Rutgers a ton of time. So each of the fourth quarter situations that we've been put in, we've played good situational football, and that's not something we've seen in quite a while.
Yeah, I mean, I forget. I don't remember what the losing streak was or how many one possession games we had lost going into last night. It was maybe 10. I'm not sure. I just know there was a number of painful defeats, and we just could not find a way to, kind of get over that. Then everybody was talking about the curse, and there was some crazy penalties. But at least in terms of the close game curse, like that curse is over, and that jinx is over. And I think we have Mickey Joseph and his calm, collected leadership, because I mean, he said it after the game. He said halftime, in the locker room, this team felt like they were going to come back and win. And I felt that watching the game. It was like, I didn't know they were going to, but even down 13-0, I just felt like, man, if we can get put one drive together, this entire game will change. And that's what ended up happening. And to come back from 13-0, after 3 Big Ten games. I know there's games to go Saturday, but right now we are alone atop the Big Ten West standings. Nebraska 2-1. I would not have thought that was going to happen 2 weeks ago.
No, and now I think we can honestly begin the bowl game talk in earnest. I think a bowl game is very much in sight. And I know we talked about the month of November being tough, but we also talked about this on Wednesday. Paul Chryst is out at Wisconsin. You have Minnesota, who looks like a tough team, but we can beat them. I personally think we can beat them. And then I know we have Michigan, right? Michigan in November, which is going to be tough.
On the road, which is probably our toughest
Who
game.
are you going to root for in that one, Chris? Who are you going to root for in that one?
I mean, I root for both of them. It is a weird deal. It's one of those things where, like, if it is a weird situation. Like last year, because I'm a Michigan fan. My mom is from the Detroit area, and so that side of the family loves Michigan. But I also lived Hastings, Nebraska for a long time, so I'm a hardcore Husker fan. They never used to be in the same conference, so it's really weird. I just kind of watch the game and I kind of cheer for both teams, and however it plays out, it's like I'm still bitter about Nebraska's loss last year, but I'm also happy about Michigan's win, and so it's kind of a double-edged sword either way.
You won't find any flip-flopping here at thegreatcornholio.org. I'll tell you that right now. So, no, but it's going to be a fun game. It's going to be a very interesting month. And, I didn't think we'd be talking about a bowl game at this point in the season. I thought we would be talking about maybe, just getting another win, and not to get too ahead of ourselves, because I know Purdue, has some playmakers as well, but a bowl game is certainly within sight.
Yeah, for sure. I think especially if you can get, one out of these next 2 games. But the thing is like, it's awesome that we're actually sitting at a point where I feel excited about the next game, and not just because, it is a Nebraska game, but because there's actually feels like there's something to play for, not only a bowl game, but man, if this team goes on the road and beats Purdue and gets to 3-1, Illinois is coming in the next week. Like, these are 2 big games. And Illinois, I think, is the team right there with Minnesota that I think could win the Big Ten West, just based off what we've seen so far. And man, if Nebraska's, I know it's going to Purdue is going to be tough, but if you win that game, you've got Illinois coming in, you're 3-1, like that's a big game for Nebraska in the conference. And we haven't had a legitimate, like, big game for a while. So it's just kind of exciting to, have some stuff to play for, and not just hoping for like a win or to feel a little bit better, but to have actually a legitimate goal that we can reach this season.
And 2 weeks from today, a certain somebody is going to commit. So we'll see how all this falls there. I know you had the big interview. I called you Chris Schefter this week because you had the inside scoop. But no, I mean, looking at 2 weeks from now and Malachi Coleman's commitment date, last night was a very big win, and I think next week against Purdue is going to be big too, because you never know. I mean, I think we're sitting nicely for him. I think from everything that you've written and everything that you've read, I think you could probably agree that Nebraska is in a good spot for Coleman, and these wins certainly help. But it's always better when you're winning.
Yeah, it definitely is always better, when you're winning. And I think, Right now, if you're looking at Mickey Joseph, I mean, there's a better chance right now of him being here, long term as the head coach than there was 2 weeks ago. So I think there's a lot of positive momentum, and he's built a lot of solid momentum on the recruiting trail. I mean, he's showing Trev Alberts like, hey, I know how to recruit for this job. I can set up a recruiting strategy, and like people are really, responding to him on the trail. And Malachi Coleman is one of them. He's Mickey's one of the biggest reasons why Nebraska was able to kind of turn it around with Coleman, because it did look like for a while that, Michigan might be in the lead, or, USC or Georgia might be in the lead. And it was interesting. He didn't visit anywhere this weekend, as far as I know. He was injured and didn't play, in his high school game. Miami canceled his visit because basically they think he's a silent commit to Nebraska. Now, I don't really. Silent commitments, I think, are worthless. I mean, it doesn't really matter if the kid says it until he actually says it publicly. But if Malachi Coleman is going to commit on the 22nd, and if he shuts down his recruitment like he said he was probably going to, then I think he's going to commit to Nebraska, and I think he's going to sign unless, things just totally like fall apart, and it looks like Mickey's not going to come back. Maybe he'll waiver, but I really think he's going to commit to Nebraska, and that's just going to be another feather in the cap for Mickey Joseph. And, right now, like Danny, last week on Monday, we talked about him, being in the top 3. Where does he stand right now? Where does he stand in your coaching power rankings right now, I guess we'll call it?
This is tough, and I already saw a lot of my mentions this morning complaining that we were crowding him too early. But if he keeps where he's going, I don't see how you change things. I mean, I really don't see how you change things, because you want stability, you want progress, and, like it or not, and I know players play for the coaches and this, that, and blah, 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 but you want a coach that players like to play for, and you can see the players really responding to Mickey. And so if he keeps this up, I would feel comfortable riding with him, not only throughout the rest of this season, but in the future as well.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, he's definitely moving up my power rankings for sure. He's well into the top 3, and he's probably right now. I mean, he probably is my number one choice. Just keep this going, and then we don't have to go through this exhaustive search. We don't have to blow up, the 2023 recruiting class potentially, and with future classes. I mean, Mickey is offering a lot of in-state recruits. He's building a lot of good relationships there, and I mean, either way, I do think that Mickey's going to be back if he's not the head coach. Unless our new head coach is colossally stupid. And, I really hope that whoever we hire, if we do hire somebody else, they would be smart enough to recognize what Mickey Joseph has meant to this program right now. But yeah, I don't see any reason to look outside as long as this team keeps winning. Now, to be fair, I mean, we do need to slow the train a little bit. It is Indiana and it is Rutgers. I mean, we don't know how many games these teams are going to win, but any Big Ten win for Nebraska football is huge. And I think the game against Purdue now is going to be the real test. If this team can beat a legitimate team, if Nebraska can win at Purdue, then I will say this team has a realistic chance of actually winning the Big Ten West Division. That's when it will become real to me. I'm not saying that they will, but if you beat Purdue, that's a legitimate victory. And I think that you can say Nebraska's got a real shot at winning this division.
Absolutely, and on the road at night is going to be tough, and
it will be tough.
And hypothetically, if Mickey were to be named the head coach, the only coach I would necessarily absolutely change, is Raiola, because he's not done anything for me to say, "Oh yes, please stay." He hasn't done anything for me to say he needs to go, because he's been put in a tough spot in my opinion, but he hasn't done anything, for me to say that he needs to stay as well. And I kind of feel bad for him, because I feel like we hired him so we could have a better chance at his nephew, and then that completely backfired. And now he's kind of stuck, and we're kind of stuck with another terrible offensive line unit.
Yeah, I think it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out. He is in a tough spot. I mean, the one guard is suspended, Prajaka's hurt, Corcoran's playing left hat. So there's definitely guys that are out of position, and guys have been injured. But that being said, there's got to be a way to get some kind of competency out of this group, and I'm not sure, what you're going to do recruiting wise. I mean, I'm hoping that this team will hit up the transfer portal on the offensive line more than they did last year. I mean, all the people who said that they needed offensive line help, well, they were right. I mean, they proved to, hit the nail on the head. And that's kind of the, a lot of Nebraska's other transfer moves are working out. O'Shawn Mathis, big play last night. I don't know if he had a sack, but he definitely got that pass breakup. And that was, and the pass breakup was huge too. That wiped away the pass interference penalty on that last drive. Marcus Washington made some big plays. Trey Palmer.
Did he make that catch last night on the sideline? What's your thoughts
I
there?
thought he did. I don't know how the hell they didn't. I don't know how the hell they overturned that. I mean, he rolled over. You literally couldn't see the ball, and they're just like, well, I don't know. We're Big Ten. Let's just like it's like they're like, well, we'll just figure it out and call it one way or the other.
It's so stupid. I watch the NFL now, and it's like, oh, he has to make 75 football moves and breathe in the end zone and say hi to cheerleaders and buy some popcorn from the stands before we can call it a catch. It's like, okay, it doesn't have to be this difficult, guys. And, they made it difficult on Friday, and I thought it was a catch. I thought it was a very good catch. I understand the ball hit the ground, but I don't think he ever lost control of the ball.
No, I don't think he did either.
Like, if the ball hit the ground and, he didn't even have his hands under it, all right. But if he made a catch, I'm sorry.
Yeah, well, then he even kind of, held the ball up, too.
Yeah.
But then there wasn't another one that was overturned? Wasn't there two? Or we tried to challenge? I thought there was another one that we caught that they overturned in the second half. I think it might have been Washington.
There was the phantom offensive pass interference on Trey Palmer. I don't know if you're talking about that one.
Oh, no, I thought there was another review, but I could be wrong. But
that call was BS too. That was an offensive pass, and it wasn't just a Nebraska thing. They called 5 offensive pass interferences. I had never seen that many in my entire life.
How bad was that personal foul penalty on that Rutgers guy, which gave us an extra first down on the fourth quarter?
He was out of bounds, but I've seen a lot worse not get called. So I'd be pissed
if that was Nebraska.
That was a cheap call. That was a cheap call. I can understand it because they did call it by the rule book, but that was still a cheap call. That was just a terrible officiating crew all around. I bet you nobody wants to work on a Friday college football game in freezing New Jersey. Actually, it's pretty nice last night, but nobody wants to work Friday night, so they're just like, here, why do you guys want to work? And they said, yeah, and that's what we got. We got a terribly officiated football game on both sides.
Yeah, it was an impressive atmosphere from Rutgers, though. They had kind of the blackout going. I expected that it was going to be like a 1-score game, but I wrote last night, Nebraska didn't cover the spread, and I don't care at all because the win is all that matters. 31-17. I said on the channel 24-17. So I mean, either of us weren't that right, but hey, man, we got a second straight win. Although you picked Indiana last week, so this is your first time.
I didn't know how the defense didn't. I wasn't sure how the defense was going to be, but I just want to say I did like the Rutgers black uniforms. I'm a sucker for black uniforms, and
those were cool.
Those were sharp last night.
Yeah, those were sure. I do like Nebraska in black as long as the helmet stays the same. I definitely dug when they had the black uniforms. I would like to see some more variations. You can be traditional and still stick. And still kind of mix it up a little bit. And I think it's fun for the players. I mean, they kind of buy into it.
But this fan base loves tradition, Chris. You know that. They love tradition to a fault. So we're not going to see any new uniforms, I think, for quite a while.
I mean, I am all about Tom Osborne, you know that, but
we didn't have stripes on the pants, and 95% of the fan base had a heart attack. So I don't think we're gonna change too much anytime soon. But I do agree with you.
Probably not. Yeah, I know. Yeah, it gets a little crazy. The stripes and just don't change the helmet. That's all I'm ever. Just don't change the helmet.
I love the helmet.
I love the helmet too. And Alabama has the classic look, and there's nothing fancy about it. And I love that. I mean, Oregon can do some cool stuff, but it's you don't need to have a different combination for every single week. And I remember the one where it literally looked piss yellow, and I'm colorblind, but it's come on, man.
I mean, they have the founder of Under Armour. If I was a recruit, I would love that. Get a nice new uniform every week. The piss yellow ones weren't good, but didn't they have glow in the dark ones that were absolutely? Yeah. Those were nice. I loved those. To me, that's so cool. I mean, I'd rather have alternating cool uniforms 95% of the time than a terrible awful uniform 100% of the time, and I think we have a good one. I think we have a good one.
I love our uniforms, but man, it's crazy in the sport in football how much, one win, two wins can just totally change the narrative, because that the loss to Oklahoma, that really kind of felt like rock bottom, and now it's amazing how far this program feels like it's come in just 3 weeks.
Yeah, this month of October could be a huge swing in many areas. I mean, it's really kind of, I don't know what this feels like a winning streak. Like, I don't even know how to react. Like, I don't know. I haven't, there hasn't been a Nebraska winning streak in quite some time. And, I'm just enjoying it. And I know the fans are enjoying it. Most of them anyway. The Facebook crowd is not enjoying it as much as they should this morning. But, I mean, it's just fun. I like winning. Winning's fun. Winning's cool. Let's do it again next weekend.
What's the Facebook crowd? I haven't looked at the comments a whole lot. What are some of the Debbie Downers saying about it?
You know how it is, Mickey Joseph, they barely won. I don't know if he's the guy, blah, blah, blah. I mean, are we really going to be proud about a barely escaped win against Rutgers? Like, these are the same ones that are complaining about the stripes on the pants and, hearkening back to the Tom Osborne days. So I'm not surprised. But yes, we are going to be damn happy about this win because it's 2 wins in a row and we're at the top of the Big 10 West for right now. So yeah, I'm very happy.
Oh man, I'm ecstatic. I was walking in my car and just like I almost skipped to I was at this high school football game, and I was like pumping my fist on the sideline. People probably thought I was crazy, but I don't care. I'm the boss, so I do whatever I want, basically. But I was skipping to my car last night, man. I'm just like, this is, this reminds me of what it was like to be in Nebraska. Like I was excited for the next week's game, and it's been a long just run of depression. And yeah, we never won 3 straight games under Scott Frost. So I'm guessing the last time we did it was 2016 under Mike Riley.
Keep talking and I'll look it up.
How about that? Yeah, so I'm pretty sure, because I know it might have been 2015. Actually, I'm trying to think when Riley got fired. Yeah, I think it was the 2015 or no, that's right. 2016 season. I'm totally off on my years. You'll have to look it up and tell me, but I know we haven't won. I know that was a thing with Scott Frost, is we never won 3 games in a row. And I believe he only won 2 games in the row in the Big Ten once. I think that was back in 2018. I want to say we beat Michigan State and maybe like Illinois or somebody. And that win over Michigan State, I remember, was a really big win because they were actually like number 25 in the playoff rankings. So it felt like we beat a ranked team, and then they ended up going 7-6. But yeah, that was like the high point of the Frost era, and I feel like we're already kind of coming up on that right now with Mickey Joseph, and it definitely feels like the most legitimate chance we've had to make a bowl game in a very, very long time.
We won our first 7 in 2016.
Okay.
And then we lost to Wisconsin, Ohio State, won against Minnesota and Maryland, lost to end the season against Iowa, where we got shellacked 40-10 against Iowa. And then we lost to Tennessee in the Music City Bowl by a 38-24 margin. Let's see.
Yeah, that was a good game, actually.
It was. Riker Fife was the passing leader for Nebraska in the Music City Bowl. Because didn't Armstrong get hurt that game? Or was he hurt, or did they just go with Fife?
He must have been hurt.
Yeah, I was going to say he must have been hurt. Let's see. Divino Zigbo. I'm just kind of going down memory lane here. Some of these names. Jordan Westerkamp had a lot of good receiving games that year. So 2016, I believe, because I'm looking at 2017, and we had.
That was when the wheels fell off, and then Riley got fired.
We had 2 wins against Rutgers and Illinois back-to-back in September of that year, and then we beat Purdue on October 28th that year, and then we proceeded to lose 4 in a row to end the season, including a 56-14 loss to Iowa, and then a 56-44 loss to Penn State, who was ranked 10th at the time the week before, and that was a good Penn State team. Yep.
Gerald is says 2016. So thanks for commenting and listening there, Gerald. But yeah, it was a long time ago, man. The Mike Riley era. It would be great to get on that again. Purdue's going to be tough, but it'll be interesting to see how kind of the action, plays out today. But the one thing that I love, I was thinking about this last night in terms of our Big Ten race is I was thinking, hey man, if Scott Frost hadn't done that onside kick, we might be 3-0 in the Big Ten. But he would still be maybe the head coach, so then we wouldn't be. But it doesn't hurt that we lost our game to Northwestern. Like, that is a loss I don't think is going to hurt us in like a tie-breaking sense of, I don't expect Northwestern to be one of the teams we're competing with. So, I feel pretty good about our 2-1 right now because there's nobody that we have to like actively root for to lose at this point.
I feel good about Purdue not having David Bell or Rondale Moore this year for the first time in what seems like a while, because boy, they used to kill us. Purdue's always had good shifty playmaking backs, and they always seem to have a field day against us, put on a show. So I'm glad that those two are no longer with Purdue because boy, they gave me headaches.
But you're right. I mean, it's going to be a really tough game on the road next week. Purdue actually has a really interesting game against Maryland. So it's kind of two somewhat surprising teams. Maryland's 4-1 now, and Purdue's 3-2. So that'll be an interesting game to watch. Another one I'm really watching is Iowa and Illinois. Illinois 4-1, beat the crap out of Wisconsin last week. And if Illinois wins that game, Iowa's going to have 2 losses in Big Ten play already, right along with Wisconsin. And our game after the bye week is Illinois coming to Nebraska. So, I mean, that could be, if we win this game and Illinois keeps winning, like that could be a huge, huge matchup coming down the road. And that's the next game that we play at home is up against Illinois.
And you look at Purdue's schedule, they lost in the opener to a tough Penn State team. They shut out Indiana State 56-0. They barely lost to a tough Syracuse team, 32-29. They squeaked by FAU, but they beat Minnesota 20-10 last weekend. So this is a good Purdue team. They have, a couple of, close losses and a quality win against Minnesota. So, they're certainly no slouch. And it always seems like when we come to play them, they always bring their A game.
Yeah, and they, you mentioned like they don't have Rondale Moore, but they do have a guy, Charlie Jones. He's got 47 catches for 588 yards and 7 touchdowns through 5 games. They've also got Aiden O'Connell, who, is kind of one of the most underrated quarterbacks, I feel like, in the Big Ten. He's not with CJ Stroud and all. He doesn't get that much talk, but he's not playing quite as well as last year. He only had 4 picks last year, and he's got 3 already this year, but still is 1,200 yards already, averaging 286 passing yards per game. So that's going to be my biggest concern. I think just looking right away at Purdue is their quarterback play is pretty solid, and their defense is averaging almost 2 takeaways per game. So that's a couple of pretty strong factors, but they do tend to turn the ball over a little bit, and we've seen this defense start to get some takeaways, and maybe that will keep building next week. You still got your mute button on there, I think, buddy.
It's early in the morning. What can I say? Purdue still has
late night last night.
Late partying at night leads to early mornings, but no, Purdue still they have a couple of good safeties. Cam Allen is one of them, and I'm not sure how you pronounce this kid's first name. Sansui Kane, I believe is how you pronounce it. Allen has 4 pass deflections, 21 total tackles. Kane has 24 total tackles and a pass deflection, in addition to a forced fumble and a fumble recovery. So they definitely have some playmakers on the defensive side of the football. And so I'm curious to see what Nebraska does to kind of combat that, especially with this line. A lot of times these safeties nowadays don't necessarily drop back into coverage. They can, provide a little bit of help in terms of pass rushing. So I'm curious to see how Nebraska contains Kane and Allen, because to me, those are 2 very big defensive playmakers for Purdue.
Yeah, they're going to have to find a way to run the ball. Purdue is a solid against the run, and just like Rutgers was, but they're only giving up 3 yards per rushing attempt. They're only allowing 51% completion rate from opposing quarterbacks. So I think Anthony Grant's going to be the key. Hopefully they can get him going. But you really have to be able to run the ball on the road to beat good teams. And Nebraska's going to have to find a way to do that. The offensive line is going to be an issue. And, I'm watching Donovan Raiola too. I think he does have some things to prove. Of course, there's only, it's like the old adage, you can't make chicken salad out of chicken shit. So, I mean, he doesn't have a lot to work with right now, but, he's got to get the most out of that group. And, Whipple's going to have to scheme it up and see what they can do. But I think that's going to be the real test. And, the good thing for Mickey is I feel like he's playing with some house money a little bit. And, if they just win, one of these next two games, I mean, we're going into November 4-4, which I think is going to be a pretty good spot. But, if you win, like I said, you win at Purdue, then it feels like you have a legitimate chance to, win this division, which would be insane. I mean, if Nebraska wins the division, Mickey Joseph is definitely not going anywhere. I think we can say that for sure.
And, you said you can't make chicken salad out of chicken shit, but look at what Bill Bush has done. I mean, maybe that could be an exception to the rule, but I agree. If we can pick up a win on Saturday against Purdue, I know we're getting a little bit ahead of ourselves, but, if we can end this month strong, then, I feel very good about our chances coming into November.
Yeah, and I think, to the point about Bush, I don't know that he was working with chicken shit so much. I think that Eric Shenander was like had some decent food and just is like the worst cooks in America, worst defensive coordinators in America. That's Eric Shenander.
Well, I think like they played guys like, for example, I don't know if Malcolm Hartzog would be having a bigger role as he is right now. I saw a report yesterday pregame, although I didn't really see this in the game, that Tommy Hill was out with the wide receivers. What do you make of that? Like, do you think that's something that can work? Do you think they're just trying to appease him to get him on the field for playing time? Like, what do you think of that? I thought it was a little strange, but
I mean, I think it's strange. I don't think that we need him at receiver. We've got pretty good depth at receiver, I can't imagine that he would be above of like I would rather see Bonner out there than him. I mean, I guess maybe it's just a chance to do something else, but just because he's had some bad games doesn't mean, he can't find a way to contribute, as a defensive back. And, we don't right now. I think there's some injury questions with Quentin Newsome. So we're going to have to see what his status is going to be. So I don't know. I wouldn't move him over there. I think that, after Brandon Moore and Hartzog, there's not a lot of guys, out there. I mean, you have Jaden Gould who can play a little bit of both as a freshman. Deshaun Singleton got some action last night. I saw at safety, but I think that they're pretty thin at that position already.
Yeah, no, I just thought it was interesting because I know I sent you the tweet and I was just kind of like, this is interesting. But yeah,
I don't really know what to make of it though.
Yeah, I don't know what to make of it either. I didn't really see him out with the wide receivers last night, and then you're definitely right about the cornerback depth beyond Hartzog and Farmer and Newsome. There isn't a ton there, but I would love to see more players step up because we've lacked cornerback depth over the past couple seasons. So if we can continue to establish depth on the fly, so to speak, I'd be very happy with that. I mean, look at what Hartzog's done. He's been great.
Yeah, it's kind of it is, the idea of like maybe starting Brandon Moore and Malcolm Hartzog at Purdue is a little scary, so hopefully Newsome is okay. But I mean, hey, those guys are playing well though. I mean, they both had interceptions last night, and I think the run defense and the defensive line is really like Colton Feast and like Ty Robinson have just been completely different players the last
Feast has been great. I know we've knocked on him, but he's been really good these past couple of weeks. Yep. And same thing as Robinson. He escaped a double team last night and still managed to get into the backfield. So those two in particular, I loved to rag on them, but I'll give them props too. I thought they were very, very good last night, and hopefully this continues. It's almost like they've just been told to just put your head down and play football and play aggressive like you can, and they've responded to the challenge well. I know Mickey challenged Robinson and last week against Indiana, and he's continued to play really well. So I'm happy to see that.
Yeah, I think putting guys in a position to succeed, that's an overlooked part of coaching, but Bill Bush has done a great job at that. And, he's obviously doing a really good job at making halftime adjustments. His defense hasn't given up a point in the second half. So I think that is really telling because it seemed like Eric Shenander was incapable of making an adjustment, that Scott Frost was incapable of making an adjustment. And so it's good to see, and even Whipple, and people probably didn't love the 4th-and-1 pass play, but, I didn't have a problem with it. I just, Mickey Joseph said, they got the look that they wanted. They just didn't execute. So, you can't always
sweep. Is that what you're talking about? The sweep?
No, the pass play, but it was 4th and 1, and
Oh,
they went spread. I'm sure people were pissed about
oh, because
that.
I was thinking about the one that they did with Trey Palmer, the
That
little.
was that
That
was
was a little
stupid.
weird. Yeah,
That was dumb. That was a
just run
bad
it up the
call.
gut. That's
Yeah,
all you gotta do.
but
Fall forward.
maybe he's thinking I can't just run it up the gut though. So maybe if I can, and that's the thing is if the snap wasn't all discombobulated, Trey Palmer probably would have got the first down. I mean, he only needed a freaking yard, but yeah,
Yeah.
that probably was a little too cute.
At that point, just fall forward, run and fall forward, and you got a chance of making the fourth down. In my opinion, I do think it was a little too cute. If it works, you get Trey Palmer in space, but I mean that one was a real head scratcher to me. All you got to do is get 1 yard, fall forward, and you got the first down. I know the push by the line was awful last night, but I think Grant could have picked up a yard.
That's somewhere too where, like you mentioned about Purdy or Smothers, like that might be a spot where you just say, hey, like we're bringing in Smothers to basically be like our power back. Not because he is but he is a big guy and he can run. And the thing is, if you are running the ball to your quarterback, you get an extra blocker. So, I mean, it could just be somewhere you shotgun snap it and he gets some momentum and picks up a yard. I mean, I don't think that would be, I know that the defense is obviously going to know you're probably going to pass it, or run the ball, but if it's short yardage, that's usually the case anyway. And sometimes they've got to find a way to be able to pick up those short yardage situations. So that's something I'm going to kind of be watching in the next couple of weeks. But man, I'm a huge Casey Thompson fan. I guess, as we're going to wrap it up here, I wanted to talk about game balls, and my game ball goes to Casey Thompson. Overall, I know that there's guys on the defense, the entire unit. Like I said, give the black shirts back to some of those guys, but Nebraska doesn't win this game without Casey Thompson steadying the ship and just doing a great job at quarterback and finding a way to come up and make some clutch plays when needed. So he gets my game ball. How about you, Danny?
Yeah, I definitely go with Casey Thompson. I think he did a good job of taking what was given. He didn't try to force too much. He just kind of took what he could against a tough pass rush from Rutgers. I mean, he was running for his life, I feel like, a lot of the game. So I think he did a really good job. And then defensively, I got to give it to Malcolm Hartzog. I mean, he's a freshman. He's come in 2 weeks in a row and really kind of changed the course of the game with the punt block against Indiana, and then the interception again last night. And so I think Malcolm Hartzog, I think Nebraska's had trouble developing players, but I think they're on the right track with him here.
Yeah, they definitely found something with him. I love Malcolm Hartzog to get benched. And I mean, not that they benched him for a long time, but just to kind of get his head back on straight and to come back and make a huge play like that. I just think that shows the coaching staff is pushing the right buttons. And Mickey, and these guys push the right buttons with Miles Farmer. I mean, he's had some struggles this year, but huge play last night. So he would get my defensive game ball. And then for coaches, I would give it to Bill Busch probably because, again, to shut out someone in the second half, I don't care any level of FBS football. That's a good job. That's a job well done.
Yeah, Bill Busch has been absolutely masterful these past couple weeks, and he's really getting the players to buy in. But it's not just about getting the players to buy into his system. He's putting them in situations where they can unleash their skills and what they are best known for. For Robinson, it's being aggressive and getting into the backfield and trying to get after the quarterback. For Feast, it's about clogging up the lanes and trying to be that disruptor for a running game. For a guy like Hartzog, it's about trying to be athletic and using his speed to pick off interceptions. It's all kind of gelling together, and it's great to see both coach and players really trusting in the system and then going out and executing it in ways that can help them succeed.
Yeah, it was a great win. A victory Saturday. We're gonna have another victory Monday. Gonna be able to sit back and watch college football all day, just feeling good. It's gonna be great. I'm looking forward to it. Who are you gonna be watching today?
I think I'm gonna be watching Miami UNC today.
Oh, a good one.
Yeah, it's gonna be a good game. Drake May is absolutely incredible, and so I'm hoping that I'm hoping Miami can take this one, but we'll see. I mean, UNC is a very good team, and I might watch my Boston College Eagles up here, although they're nothing to watch this year. So, I mean, so it's going to be very interesting day. But like you said, it's going to be fun to watch it without stress because, boy, last night I was about this close to breaking my TV on several occasions.
Yeah, I had a calm. I had a feeling that they were going to pull it out. So I'm glad that they did. And I'm going to sit back today and watch who can come join Nebraska in a first place tie atop the Big Ten West. Come get us, boys, because right now we're in first place all alone atop the Big Ten West. So I think we will wrap that up about here, folks. It's college game day. Everything's coming on. So you can enjoy your college football Saturday. Maybe time to drive through McDonald's or get the old cup of Joe out to enjoy this college football Saturday. But make sure if you like our Nebraska content to like this video, subscribe to our YouTube channel, get in on the comments, tell us what you think about Nebraska's 2-game winning streak, and also check out our written content. You can follow me, Chris Peterson, at huskerbigred.com. Danny has some great stuff over at thegreatcornholio.org. So check all of that stuff out. You can check us out, Husker Big Red Podcast, on Apple or Spotify. So rate us there, and we'll be back on Monday. We'll have some more thoughts on Nebraska's win over Rutgers, and we will look ahead to Purdue and break down everything in the Big Ten West. So enjoy your college football Saturday and enjoy this win over Rutgers. 2 wins in a row. As always, folks, go Big Red.
Go Big Red.